Let me tell you something that no one tells you when you're young. The world doesn't end with a scream. It ends with a sigh. A soft one, like breath fogging up a window just before it fades. And before that, it's rules, little ones, the kind they teach you in kindergarten. Things that seemed harmless at the time, like don't take what isn't yours or say you're sorry when you hurt someone. No one told us those rules weren't cute. They were sacred. They were warnings. I used to think the world fell apart because of wars or disasters. Now I know better. It's the slow unraveling of manners, the decay of decency, one forgotten rule at a time. And I've seen it. Not in theory, not on the news. I watched the collapse, lived through it. You want to know what finally broke people? Not hunger nor plague. It was when we stopped cleaning up our own mess. You laugh. I get it. But let me tell you a story. One that someone once told me when I was too tired to believe in anything else. It's a simple story, like the kind you read before nap time. But by the end of it, you'll understand why I'm still here, and why I still believe in warm cookies, even if the oven's cold, even if there's no one left to share them with. There was a village once, out past the tree line, past where the machines stopped working and the roads gave up their names. It wasn't special. They grew potatoes in torn fabric sacks, collected rain in glass bottles, and read bedtime stories by firelight. Not because it was charming, because there was no other way. They had rules too, just the kind everyone knew. Don't take more than you need. Speak kind when you can. Wash your hands before you eat. That last one. It sounds simple, but it used to mean something. They said it the way you'd say grace, with quiet, with weight, with the understanding that unclean hands meant something more than just dirt. It meant you brought the world's filth to your mouth and called it nourishment. There was a boy in that village. His name is gone now. It doesn't matter. What matters is this. He stopped washing his hands, first out of laziness, then pride. And when his mother told him, he said something that chilled her more than winter ever could. It's not my mess. He was 8 years old enough to know better, old enough to know that every sickness starts small. The others noticed, of course, the way flies followed him, the way the bread he broke made others queasy. But no one wanted to be impolite. After all, he was just a boy. And the first to die was an old man, then a mother, then 2 more children. Not from disease exactly, but from neglect stacked like firewood. People stopped hugging, stopped holding hands at supper, stopped letting their babies crawl on the floor. And when someone finally asked the boy, quietly, gently, why he never washed up anymore, he said, "No one else does it either." And that was true. By then it wasn't just his hands, it was everyone's. Smudged with ash, caked with resentment, and stained from tearing bread no one shared. The well ran dry not because it was cursed, but because nobody cleaned it. They'd all assumed someone else would, even when it smelled like rot, even when the water tasted like shit and piss. They thought it would fix itself. They thought wrong. And when the sickness came, not the kind you catch, but the kind you let in, it didn't wear a mask. It wore their own faces, turned inward, turned on each other. People blamed the boy, of course, like he was a prophet instead of a mirror. But it wasn't his fault, not entirely. He just reminded them what they already knew. If you don't wash your hands, you'll start to think the filth belongs there. And eventually, you'll forget it ever didn't. That's the story. No demons nor curses and no final boss at the bottom of the well. Just a boy who forgot what clean felt like, and a village that let him. You'd be surprised how often it goes that way. Or maybe you wouldn't. When I heard that story, I was sitting in the back of a collapsed library. The spine of the world had already broken by then, and we were living in the soft, leaking marrow. A woman told it to me. Didn't look like a preacher, nor sounded like a hero. Just someone who still believed the rules mattered, even when no one was left to follow them. She died that winter, froze to death next to a crate of canned peaches she wouldn't open, because they weren't hers. She died decent. And I wish I could tell you that was enough to save us. It wasn't. Turns out remembering the rules is not the same as keeping them. Turns out, knowing the sickness is in the water doesn't stop you from drinking when you're thirsty enough. And I did drink. We all did. We're still here, sure, but we're not well. Not really. We nod at each other now. We keep our distance. We trade things without names, without thanks. Some of us still say please, but the word sounds like gravel in the throat, like something we coughed up from an older version of ourselves. You want to know what I've learned? It wasn't the bombs, wasn't the blackouts or the hunger or the sky falling in on itself. It was how quietly we folded. It was how fast we got used to it. How quickly we stopped washing our hands, stopped cleaning our messes, stopped saying I'm sorry. You ever sit in a room that used to be full of people and feel like the walls remember the noise better than you do? That's what life feels like now. We don't fear monsters, we miss manners, we don't scream, we shrug. That's how the world ends. Not in fire nor in ice, but in forgetting what truly mattered, and then pretending it never did. So if you're listening to this, wherever you are, and you still know how to say thank you, still know how to say, I'm sorry, and mean it, don't stop, even if no one answers, because I've come to believe the universe doesn't punish us with death. It punishes us with distance, the unbearable silence that comes after we stop reaching for one another. And if that's not hell, then maybe we built something worse, something quieter, something we earned.